Okay, hello, good afternoon, and welcome back to the Law Entrance YouTube channel and to a new beginning. New beginning, why? Because now we are going to start our series of the Hindu newspaper analysis for the CLAT 2026 aspirants. For people who are preparing for law entrance exams for the year 2026, be it the CLAT exam, be it the ALET exam, be it the SLAT exams, or be it the upcoming MHCET and Jamia and those kind of law entrance exams, which can be relevant even for the people who are going to take admission in 2025 and people who took the CLAT 2025. Okay, so that is the plan. And that being said, I hope most of you know me. My name is Govind Singh. I have been doing the Hindu analysis on the channel for the past few months. I have also been taking care of subjects like legal, English, and logical reasoning as well. You must have seen me in some of the analysis sessions as well. Now, what is the plan? What is the agenda? Recently, I took a session where I told you that how to read the newspaper effectively. How can you utilize the newspaper and how can it help you gain an edge in your preparation from a point of view of GK, from the point of view of English, from the point of view of legal, or from the point of view of understanding how logical reasoning functions. In today's class, what are we going to do? Let's look at the agenda for today's class. Today is 16th of December, and this is the Hindu analysis. Okay, so firstly, I would take you through the newspaper. We'll just take a very brief, I would say, look at the newspaper, and I would help you identify the topics which are relevant for you as a aspirant, as a law aspirant, and help you understand how to filter through the topics given in a newspaper in a particular given day, because all the topics are not relevant for us. All the topics are not supposed to be read in entirety. Some of the topics you can just read the headline, some of the topics you need to read in detail, some of the topics you need to understand in detail. So that is where the distinction lies, and we are going to talk about that in today's session. Primarily, we'll be using the Hindu newspaper for our Hindu analysis. On some days, we can also look at the Indian Express just for supplementary purposes. But primarily, this would involve the Hindu newspaper. So I would also recommend that you guys also read the Hindu newspaper on a daily basis. And it would be even better if you have already read the newspaper before you come and attend this particular class, because that would help you relate to it a little bit more. You could understand the topics which we'll be discussing in detail, and you would be able to participate in the discussion in a more fruitful manner. That being said, if you're not able to read it in the first few hours of the morning or the afternoon, you can also choose to read it in the evening. That's absolutely all right. But what is very important is that you attend this particular session every day. This would happen from Monday to Friday, and Saturday, Sunday sessions would be taken by Salixa. Those would also be GK oriented sessions, which would give you a recap of what happened in the week and some other sessions on GK as well. Now, that being said, let's talk about the next thing which we are going to do, which is how to approach the editorial section. So every day you get a section which has 3 to 4 editorial articles in the newspaper. I'm talking about the Hindu newspaper. Same is the case for Indian Express as well. Now, how do we approach the editorial section? Which articles should we read from the editorial section? How should we read the editorial section? We'll talk about that in today's class. And then we'll look at 3 topics. All 3 of them are from the editorial section. We'll talk a little bit about these topics in detail. So that is the plan for today. How many of you are watching me live? Guru is saying, I'm done with all the exams. Should I attend this? If you are someone who is planning to appear for the upcoming MHCET exams or the LSAT exams, or if you're planning to appear once again for CLAT 26 or ALET 26, then this would definitely be beneficial and you can benefit from this. Even if you're not appearing, if you want to increase your general knowledge, if you want to know what's going around in the country and the world, then also you can attend this. So that being said, let's begin today's session. I'll take you through the newspaper first of all and tell you which are the topics which you need to filter out. Okay, let's begin. Just quickly give me a response in the chat box when you can see the newspaper on my screen. I can see a few of you attending this live. So please give me a response. If you can see the newspaper on your screen, you can give a quick yes in the chat box if it is visible. Okay, Hari says yes. So I'm going to go with that affirmation. Now that we have the newspaper in front of us, this is the front page, right? The front page would usually have four or five different news from different segments. You can see one from the sports section, you can see one from the data point section, one from the awards section, one from this is state news, and one which is let's say national level news. So these are some very short, crisp headlines which tell you about what exactly is going to be in the newspaper today. Now, of course, you'll be reading this part, this section. Then, of course, you have to read the first page in detail. The first page of the newspaper is important. That is where the most important headlines are covered. Sometimes the front page might be dominated by mostly political news. So, in those cases, you can probably skip those articles. But in most cases, I would sincerely recommend you to read the front page diligently, read all the articles, try to understand all the articles. For example, what are the articles which we have for the front page? Simultaneous polls, bills to come, not to come up before the LS today. What is LS? LS is essentially the Lok Sabha, right? What is simultaneous polls? So from quite a long time there have been talks about conducting a single election rather than conducting elections for different states at different point of times, because that puts a burden on the state exchequer, the central exchequer as well. So they are suggesting that it would be a good idea that सारे elections एक ही साथ एक ही time पे conduct कराए जाए, simultaneously कराए जाए. That is called simultaneous polls. And उसके लिए of course we'll have to bring a bill in the parliament in order to make it an act, in order to make it a law. And this bill, the simultaneous polls bills, is not going to come up before the Lok Sabha today. So that is essentially the headline. The next headline is committed to eliminating Naxalism in Chhattisgarh by 2026, says Amit Shah. So Amit Shah, we all know, is our Honorable Home Minister. And this is a statement which he has given where he says that they would eliminate Naxalism in Chhattisgarh. We all know that Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, these are some states, some of the northeastern states as well, where Naxalism is prevalent. Naxalism is essentially a little bit different from terrorism, what we usually experience on the borders, either with the Pakistan or with China. And how is it different? Naxalism may usually it's the people of our own country, civilians, Indian civilians, who have, let's say, a grievance with the local bodies, with the government, with the state government or the central government, and they take up arms and they create a situation of civil unrest. And that is essentially what it looks like. They try to de-establish the government, they try to do violent activities, and that is what Mr. Amit Shah is saying, that he wants to eliminate Naxalism from Chhattisgarh in the next 2 years. Let's see if that happens or not, but that's a good aim to have. What do we have next? Assembly elections. Kejriwal to fight from New Delhi as Aam Aadmi Party names all candidates. So that is the news. I think it's self-explanatory. State elections would be happening in New Delhi very soon, and Kejriwal is fighting. Let's see if he comes to power once again or not. As of now, the chief minister is Atishi, because we all saw the controversy where Arvind Kejriwal had to go to jail under charges of PMLA. PMLA was Prevention of Money Laundering Act, right? So if you have followed that particular bit, you would understand why he is not the CM right now and why Atishi is the CM. But अभी re-elections होने वाले हैं, दोबारा elections होने वाले हैं, and he'll contest. So we'll check. No jobs, amenities, Rohingya suffer amidst a BJP slugfest. Slugfest essentially means a fight, a tussle. BJP are the two political parties. Rohingyas are the refugees from Myanmar who have come to India illegally and have settled in India. They are primarily if we talk about Delhi, near the border areas of Delhi, Rohingyas have their own settlements. जिसको हिंदी में आप झुग्गी बस्ती कहते हो. So that is the thing. And they don't have any jobs, they don't have any amenities, they don't have any facilities, and they cannot get government benefits because they are not citizens of India. They don't have your Aadhaar card and stuff. So they're in a crisis situation, and Aam Aadmi Party and BJP are blaming each other. How are they blaming each other? Aam Aadmi Party says that law and order comes under the domain of center, because in a union territory like Delhi, the law and order situation is handled by the central government, the lieutenant governor. Whereas BJP, which is the central government, says that they are providing support and facilities to Rohingyas. That is why Rohingyas are flocking to Delhi. So they are providing financial aid and help to the Rohingyas, to the illegal migrants, and that is why they are settling in Delhi. So they are putting blame on each other, and no one wants to take responsibility and accountability, which is a classic Indian problem. Okay, next is Techie's death. Police arrest wife, family, take them to Bangalore. This case is making a lot of noise these days in social media. The suicide of Atul Subhash. So that was an unfortunate incident, and अब इस पे क्योंकि बहुत ज़्यादा national uproar हो रहा है, so the arrest has happened. We'll follow whatever happens in the case. Then there is city-based news. This is again related to the Rohingya crisis, and Atishi has written to Amit Shah, essentially over the presence of Rohingyas. And Hardeep Singh Puri says Aam Aadmi government is playing host. That is, they are hosting the Rohingyas in Delhi by providing them shelter, by providing them financial aid, which they should not. So again, the blame game is happening. So in general, circumstances, city-based news को हम नहीं करेंगे because these are specific to the city. For example, this is the Delhi edition. So this would have Delhi-based news in whichever city you are. It would have news from your city or wherever the newspaper is published, the nearest city. And you can usually skip the city-based news in most cases because CLAT does not really ask you city-based news. The same goes for state based news as well if the news is not of national importance. Priyanshi is on the stream. Good afternoon, Priyanshi. So you can skip your state based news if the case is not of a legal nature or if it is not of national importance. So Sambal temple did not appear overnight. UPCM, आपके क्या नाम है UPCM का योगी जी has said, and the DM is writing to ASI. ASI is the Archaeological Survey of India, which look at the historical sites and their restoration and preservation. So there's a controversy going around the Sambhal temple, which is in a place called Sambhal, which is in UP. And there is a controversy as to whether it's a temple, whether it's a mosque, whether it's the land of Waqf, whether it's not a Waqf land. All of those things are going on. Not very relevant from a competitive point of view, but it's good to know. 10 students hospitalized. This is not important from a competitive point of view. Whenever I say some news is not important, it does not mean I'm insensitive to people dying or crimes happening or whatever bad things are reported in the newspaper. I just mean that it's not important from a competitive point of view because CLAT would not frame a question on crime based news. Okay, just putting out that clarification. Now, again, we have state based news. Now, a good thumb rule to follow while reading the Hindu newspaper is you can easily skip through most of the politics based news unless it's very important or of a national nature, as I was just telling you. So, we'll just quickly go through this. This is not important. This is also not important. BJD related news, not important. Haryana related news, not important. Kerala related news, not important. Nothing important here. Okay, see, these kind of news you can probably follow because this is related to the environment. CLAT loves to ask questions which are based on technology, based on recent developments, based on environment, based on climate. इस बार भी आपके एक दो इंग्लिश के पैसेजेस इस पे बेस्ड थे एंड काफी बार क्वेश्चंस आ जाते हैं फ्रॉम क्लाइमेट सो मोर carcasses of olive ridley turtles continue to wash ashore in Vizag is Vishakhapatnam, the eastern coast of India. And what are olive ridley turtles? Olive ridley turtles essentially come to the eastern coast to lay their eggs, and carcasses means dead bodies. So they were found. There were a lot of dead turtles found along the coast of Vishakhapatnam, which is due to marine pollution, which is due to them not getting their natural habitat, which is also due to the presence of fishermen catching the fishes and them not getting the required conditions which they need in order to survive and thrive. So they are dying. And these are quite rare turtles. These are, endangered sort of a species, and that is why this is important. Okay, now here we are at the editorial section of the newspaper. We'll talk about this in detail and how to approach the editorial section. First of all, editorial section hota kya hai? What is it essentially? Is it composed of? This section usually covers issues which are of national importance, which require a more detailed understanding, which have multiple nuances, which can be argued from multiple lenses, multiple perspectives, which require attention for multiple days. So editorial may you would often see topics which are repeated. Topics are often discussed in editorials from different authors, different perspectives, sometimes against a particular topic, sometimes in favor of a particular topic. So you'll get a lot of perspective which would help you understand your and build your critical thinking abilities. You would be able to understand how logic is used, how reasoning is used, in some cases how legal reasoning is used, in some cases how the English is used, because the sentences and the paragraphs are framed in beautiful manners in some of the editorials. These are very good to improve your English knowledge, to improve your vocabulary, to improve your grammar, to improve your reading comprehension skills. All of that happens naturally if you read your editorials अच्छे से. ठीक है. सो एडिटोरियल आर्टिकल्स को हम बहुत इंपॉर्टेंस देंगे एंड मोस्टली डिस्कस करेंगे अपने एनालिसिस सेशंस में. इनको आई वुड सजेस्ट कि आप अच्छे से पढ़ो, पूरे पूरे पढ़ो. अभी इनिशियल फ्यू मंथ्स में तो आई वुड सजेस्ट कि रीड ऑल द एडिटोरियल आर्टिकल्स व्हिच आर इन द हिंदू न्यूज़पेपर एंड ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड देम, ट्राई टू decode them. If you find something which you don't know about, try to Google about that particular thing and gain more knowledge about that particular thing. If you encounter a new word of vocabulary, note that down, find its meaning, find its synonyms, find its antonyms, find its usage, and try to incorporate it into your vocabulary. We'll also do a couple of like 2 to 3 vocabulary words in every Hindu analysis session. That is also a practice which we follow, including today. We'll also look at 3 new words today from the newspaper, and I would tell you their meaning so that धीरे धीरे आपकी vocabulary भी expand होती रहे. ठीक है. So we'll come to the topics individually, but abhi one topic is about one candidate, multiple constituencies. I'll explain it to you what that essentially means. The other topic is places of worship acts related, violations of places of worship act. This is again आपका I think वही संबल वाला issue ही है इसमें discuss the temples and the mosque वाला issue. हाँ, correct. Then we have India's former attempts at mineral diplomacy. Mineral diplomacy essentially means making partnerships with other countries in order to import minerals, essentially critical minerals, which are required for multiple purposes, be it defense, be it technology, be it industry, be it renewable energy. Multiple things के लिए we require a lot of minerals which are usually not found in our country. So we need to import those minerals, and in order to import those minerals, we have to see that we are not heavily reliant on a particular country. So as of now, most countries in the world are reliant on one particular country for their mineral supply and for processing of minerals. Can you guys name that country which I'm talking about? Which country is currently supplying the maximum minerals to the world? Anyone? Any guesses? A hint is it's one of our neighboring countries. Yes, Priyanshi has guessed it correctly. That is China. China is the correct answer. China currently controls a huge majority of mineral supply of the world because it has those sort of tie-ups with the countries which have those minerals. It has taken control of those mines and supply chain and controls a lot of supply chain as of now. Not just the supply chain, but also the processing network. It controls more than 80% of the processing units in order to process those minerals. So even if you extract the minerals through partnerships, you would have to rely on China to process those minerals because you don't have the capacity to do that. We'll understand this article in a little more detail when we talk about this, but yeah, this is a good article. Warding off fire, there should be no slackening in fire safety norms in hospitals. This is a optional one. You can skip this because this is just based on a fire which broke out in city hospital in Tamil Nadu, and some people lost their lives. But ठीक है, उतना ज़्यादा nationally important ये नहीं है issue. The digital frontier of inequality. Now this talks about gender equality in general, and an interesting article. You can definitely read this, and it talks about what are the risks involved in not empowering the other gender, what are the risks involved in not taking care of the participation of women in different areas in different zones, how India also needs to reform its legislations while keeping in touch with the gender equality thing. So, interesting article, can read this. Although we won't be discussing this in detail, but I would definitely recommend you to read this. This side of the opinion page usually has state-based opinionated articles, and you can skip them most of the time. So the opinion page के left वाले articles you can read, the right side one you can skip. Okay. Then there is over 78% of top paid H1B applicants were from India. So this is essentially H1B is basically a visa application for US, as you can see it in the image, and almost 80% were Indians. So that shows a trend that a lot of Indians are seeking out visas for US, and it's interesting to see this particular number. Although you don't have to remember all these numbers and these data, but the perspective which you get is important. Okay, so you can read this as well. Now, this is important. How would a carbon market function? We'll talk about this in detail when we begin the analysis, Abhi. But this essentially talks about carbon trading. This talks about climate change. This talks about incentivizing companies to move towards green energy and renewable energy. And we'll look at this in detail when we talk about it. What is the BGD? Why is the BJD opposing the Polavaram project? Now, this is again a state-specific issue. BJD is Biju Janata Dal, a prominent party, a political party from Odisha, and Polavaram project is what? It is a project to generate electricity. It is a river project essentially, hydropower project. So that is what the article is about. You can read this. No harm in reading this particular article as well. While simultaneous elections are impractical and complicated, this is an interesting article you can also read. We'll also talk about this a little bit in today's analysis. But these are the kinds of articles which I want you guys to read, at least in the initial few months of your preparation, because they would help you develop those critical thinking skills, develop that base of understanding where you would be able to understand complex GK topics with ease because you know these basic topics. Okay. Then there is one liner that today is Vijay Divas. Vijay Divas, why do we celebrate it on 16th December? That is where when we won the Indo-Pakistan War of 1971, and it led to the development of, not development, the freedom of which country? Which country got its freedom in 1971 after the Indo-Pakistan War? Can you guys name the country? Dash Liberation War भी कहते हैं इसको. What essentially is in the place of Dash? Any guesses? Bangladesh is the correct answer. Absolutely right. So Bangladesh got its independence through this particular war. Earlier, it used to be a part of Pakistan. It used to be East Pakistan and West Pakistan. So East Pakistan then became Bangladesh. So Bangladesh का Happy Independence Day भी है and Vijay Divas भी है. ठीक है? All right. Next is Disanaike holds fruitful talks with Jay Shankar and Doval. Now, three names mentioned here. Jay Shankar, I'm guessing most of you know. Ajit Doval is a national security advisor, and Disanaike, Aruna Kumara Disanaike, is the recently appointed president of which country? The flag you can see in the picture. He's the recently appointed president of Sri Lanka, and he's on a 3-day visit to India. So दिल्ली में अगर आप रहते हो और आप निकलोगे तो आपको श्रीलंकन फ्लैग्स लगे हुए दिखेंगे काफी सारी जगह. मैं कल निकला था तो मुझे दिखे थे. But yes, he's here for bilateral talks and they have been fruitful, so that is a good thing. On what issues have they had their discussion? Trade, investment, maritime, security and energy. So this is interesting to know. इसमें बहुत ज़्यादा डीप जाने की आपको ज़रूरत नहीं है, but yeah, you should know the basics. AIADMK appeals to center. This is not important. Morocco welcomes Indian defense companies to set up production units. Okay, this is interesting. Tabla maestro Zakir Hussain admitted to US hospital. Okay, Manmohan Singh believed. Okay, this is not important. Now we are again back to state-based news, which are not important. State-based news and politics-related news you can skip. Okay. This is again nothing important here. Nothing important here. Okay, this is important. This is a new scheme which has been launched. Center launches Jal Vahak scheme for cargo movement via inland waterways. So essentially a new scheme to boost long haul cargo movement via inland waterways. Inland waterways का मतलब क्या होता है? देखो waterways जब आप मोस्टली बोलते हो कि waterways से transportation हो रहा है, So you mean seas है ना, seas and oceans, but inland waterways means कि India की rivers के through cargo is being moved. So for example, across the banks of river Ganga, they are making that sort of a network that goods can be transported not just through your air network, rail network and road network, but also through your वाटर नेटवर्क. सो इसके लिए इन्होंने काफी सारे कार्गो शिप्स को फ्लैग ऑफ किया है, MV AAI, MV होमी बाबा, MV त्रिशूल, along with two dam barrages, Ajay and Diku, from GR Jetty in Kolkata. सो इन्होंने दो वाटरवेज बनाए हैं, वन इज ऑन गंगा रिवर एंड वन इज ऑन ब्रह्मपुत्र रिवर एंड वन इज ऑन बराक रिवर, थ्री इंसेंचुअली. एंड उसी से रिलेटेड ये स्कीम है विच ऑफर्स रीइंबर्समेंट ऑफ अप टू 35% ऑन द टोटल ऑपरेटिंग एक्सपेंडिचर विच द कंपनीज वुड इनकर. सो इंटरेस्टिंग स्कीम, जलवाहक स्कीम, रिमेंबर द नेम, फॉर इनलैंड वाटरवेज कार्गो मूवमेंट. ओके. Now, all this is not important. If you are interested, you can read it, but nothing important. Do take a close look at these one liners because they tell you about the recent world developments. Israel to close Dublin embassy, citing extreme anti Israel policies. Rwanda and Congo have cancelled peace talks. ABC News to pay $15 billion to settle defamation suit. 14 killed in French century of Mayotte as cyclone Chido strikes. Then this is the ongoing Israel wala Gaza wala issue. We have discussed this multiple times at length. South Korean leader seeks calm after impeachment of Yoon. Okay, not that important for us. Brazilian President Lula discharged from hospital after surgery. All of this is not that important. Then we are now down to the sports section. So the Border Gavaskar Trophy between India and Australia is ongoing. India performing not so good. Recently, D. Gukesh won the World Championship, Chess Championship. He's an Indian, and after Vishwanathan Anand, he has become the second Indian to win the FIDE World Championship, which was happening in Singapore. Is Magnus Carlsen did not participate in the championship, so he defeated a German guy called Ding Liren. So yeah, that was some news. Then anything interesting here? No, nothing important or interesting in the rest of the sports section. So yeah, that is an overview of today's newspaper. ओवरव्यू क्या, आज हमने मोस्टली न्यूज़पेपर के थ्रू ही एनालिसिस भी कर ही लिया, बट एक दो टॉपिक्स हैं उनके बारे में आई वांट टू टेल यू अ लिटिल बिट मोर, सो विल डिस्कस देम. I'll quickly explain 2 minute लेके all of these three topics and what is essentially mentioned in the editorial. I would not be reading out the editorial for you because that is your task. आपको पढ़ना है editorial, and अगर आपको समझ नहीं आता, you can obviously ask any of the questions in the next Hindu analysis session. So that is something which I would really appreciate if you read the Hindu analysis editorial after the class. ठीक है, चलो डिस्कस करते हैं आज के तीन टॉपिक्स: कार्बन मार्केट, वन कैंडिडेट, वन कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसी एंड मिनरल डिप्लोमेसी. लेट्स स्टार्ट विद द डिस्कशन ऑफ कार्बन मार्केट. सो व्हाट एसेंशियली इज अ कार्बन मार्केट एंड हाउ डज इट फंक्शन? उसके लिए आपको समझना पड़ेगा कि कार्बन ट्रेडिंग होती क्या है, और कार्बन ट्रेडिंग समझने के लिए यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट एसेंशियली आर कार्बन क्रेडिट्स. Now, in the international framework, everyone wants to reduce carbon emission. Everyone wants to move towards renewable energy. That is simple and understandable. But how to enforce that? So, उसके लिए carbon trading mechanism बनाया गया, where hypothetically speaking, let's say a company A, or let's say a country A. Let's not talk about company. Let's say a country A is given permission to emit 100 let's say ton of carbon emission. Okay, that is the limit which let's say an international treaty has stipulated. Let's say India is the country A and India has signed a particular treaty which allows it 100 tons of carbon emission in a particular month. I'm taking hypothetical example. Let's say there is a country B which is also allowed 100 ton of carbon emission in a particular month, and this country B is also bound by this international treaty. Now, how carbon trading would function is they would want to incentivize that everyone does lesser carbon emission as opposed to what is their limit. So if the limit for country A is 100 tons, if country A does 80 tons of carbon emissions, they get 20 carbon credits. Why 20 carbon credits? Because they did 20 ton less than what they possibly could, what was allowed to them. So you give them a reward of 20 credits. Now you would say, what is this reward? Is this some cashback? Is this anything else? We'll talk about that. So for now, let's imagine this country A got 20 credits because of just doing 80 ton of production of carbon emission. Now there is country B, which let's say exceeds this 100 ton of carbon emission limit and does, let's say, 110 ton of carbon emission. Now, because it is a signatory to this international treaty, exceeding this limit would result in what? Would result in penalties, would result in sanctions, would result in international non cooperation by different countries, which would basically harm this country's international trade and all of those things, and financial as well. So अब करेंगे क्या? अब this country can take 10 carbon credits from country A by purchasing them. यानी कि in exchange of money, let's say they give them 10 crore rupees and buy 10 carbon credits from country A, because country A has 20 carbon credits because they did only 80 ton of production and country B needs 10 more credits. So अब इन्होंने 10 credits खरीद लिए तो इनकी लिमिट हो गई 110 ton, and then they won't be liable for a penalty. So this is how carbon trading functions. कि एक country ने कम किया उनको credits मिल गए, so this country got incentive कि if they do it less they would get carbon credits, for which they can get money by trading those carbon credits to other countries which need them. And इस country को disincentivize किया हमने कि भाई अगर आप देखो 100 टन से ज्यादा करोगे तो आपको पैसे खर्च करके फिर carbon credits खरीदने पड़ेंगे. So this is how the mechanism of carbon trading and a carbon market functions. Now, what essentially is this article also talking about कि कैसे हम implement करेंगे carbon trading को, carbon market को, because this has certain challenges. For example, आपने एक country को बोल तो दिया कि आप इतना ही emission करोगे, but how would you track that a person is exceeding their carbon credits, or if a person even has carbon credits or not? So वो चीज एक implementation point of view से there is a limitation, but this essentially correlates to the larger context of how we want to reduce pollution, how we want to work towards climate change by reducing the carbon emission and incentivizing businesses to move towards renewable energy, to move towards green energy. And this is how your carbon markets function. Okay? I hope this is simple and clear to everyone. Nothing complicated here. ओह माय बैड, डिंग लिरेन इज अ चाइनीज. माय बैड, माय बैड, मैंने जर्मन बोल दिया ना गलती से, सॉरी, माय बैड. डिंग लिरेन इज अ चाइनीज. आई डोंट नो, आई वाज थिंकिंग ऑफ समवन एल्स. Anyway, Ding Liren is a Chinese guy, and D. Gukesh is of course Indian, and has also become the youngest to win the championship. He was also the youngest grandmaster, so multiple records to his name. All right, chalo. We were, यार मैंने हिंदू एनालिसिस तो शेयर ही नहीं किया आप लोगों के साथ स्क्रीन, मैंने पूरा ऐसे ही पढ़ा दिया. Oops. I was supposed to be teaching you on this particular screen. You guys did not tell me that the slide is not visible. अरे यार देखो, मैं यही बता रहा था कि there is a country A which has let's say 100 ton की limit. There is a country B also has 100 ton की limit. इन्होंने 80 ton किया, so they got 20 carbon credits. इन्होंने 110 ton किया, so they purchased 10 carbon credits. इस country को incentive मिला कि कम करेंगे तो पैसा मिलेगा, बिकॉज बेच सकते हैं इन कार्बन क्रेडिट्स को. इस कंट्री को डिसइंसेंटिवाइज किया कि अगर आप लिमिट एक्सीड करोगे तो या तो पेनल्टी दो या फिर पैसे खर्च करके आप खरीदो एक्स्ट्रा कार्बन क्रेडिट. सो दिस इज हाउ अ कार्बन मार्केट फंक्शंस, एंड उसके लिमिटेशंस भी मैंने आपको बता दिए. ठीक है, चलो लेट्स मूव टू द नेक्स्ट टॉपिक व्हिच वाज, लेट्स टॉक अबाउट वन कैंडिडेट multiple constituencies. Now many of you have observed, must have observed that many of the politicians fight from two constituencies, two different seats. Our PM Modi also fought from two different seats in the Lok Sabha election. One was Varanasi and one was Vadnagar, right? And Rahul Gandhi also recently fought from two different seats. One was Wayanad in Kerala and one was Raebareli in UP. Similarly, the recently made not PM, CM of Uttarakhand, Pushkar Dhami, also fought from two different seats. So that is a tactic which some politicians use in order to exercise influence in two different states, two different constituencies, and influence elections their way. But is this a right practice? The answer is no. And why? Why is this not a good practice that one candidate should be allowed to fight from multiple seats or multiple constituencies? Firstly, because it is against the constitution. As per the constitution, you can only represent one seat. So what happens is when a candidate wins, let's say from both the seats where he contested, just say Rahul Gandhi also won from both the seats and Modi ji also won from both the seats. So one seat they have to vacate, and then उस seat पे होता है by election, which essentially means re-election for that particular seat. एंड अगर आप बाय इलेक्शन कराओगे तो पूरा प्रोसेस ऑफ इलेक्शन आपको दोबारा से करवाना पड़ेगा, विच वुड इनकर अ हैवी कॉस्ट. वाई हैवी कॉस्ट? क्योंकि पूरा अरेंजमेंट करना पड़ता है इलेक्शन के लिए. यू हैव टू डिप्लॉय सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेज, यू हैव टू प्रोक्योर बैलेट बॉक्सेस, यू हैव टू यू नो invest a lot of resources in conducting the elections smoothly. And by elections are an expensive process, and ये फालतू खर्चा हम क्यों कर रहे हैं? अगर ये if you only allow one candidate to contest from one seat, you would not have to do by elections. So that is one perspective as to why we are talking about one candidate should not be allowed to fight from multiple constituencies. Now, what is the legal position on this? The legal position is up till 1996, a candidate could fight from any number of seats. There was no restriction. But in 1996, there was an amendment which was made to the Representation of People Act of 1951, which limited this number to just two seats. So now, after this amendment in 1996, a candidate can fight from two different seats, but isko bhi I think हमें one कर देना चाहिए. That is what the editorial says. The editorial also gives you examples from countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh. वहाँ पे भी जो है ये काफ़ी ख़राब सिनेरियो है. पाकिस्तान में तो इवन 4-5 कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसीज से भी लड़ते हैं एक एक मिनिस्टर. बांग्लादेश में भी कोई लिमिट नहीं है. अब रिसेंटली उन्होंने लिमिट 3 कर दिया बांग्लादेश में, पहले कोई लिमिट नहीं थी. And even UK had this system of multiple constituency, but they have also banned this particular thing in the 1980s. I think 1983 में उन्होंने बैन कर दिया था इसको. That is what the article tells you about, that we should also do away with the system of multiple constituencies with a single candidate, because this puts a burden on the exchequer unnecessarily, and कोई फायदा है नहीं इसका. Second thing is, this is also against the fundamental rights of people. How, you might ask? Because the right to freedom of speech and expression has become a joke. A candidate, let's say you are voting for X person, and X person is participating in elections from two seats A and B, and he has won from both A and both B. Now you voted in the seat B thinking that X would be your representative, X would be representing you. But X won from seat A and became the minister or became the MLA from seat A. And seat B got vacant again, and there were by elections, and then the candidate which came was not the candidate which you wanted to bring to power. So essentially, this is discrediting the voters' choice. This is discrediting the voters' mandate that they have chosen a particular candidate for a particular seat, and you are not becoming the representative of that particular seat. So that is what this article is all about. अच्छा article है, इसको आप पढ़ सकते हो डिटेल में. Let's move to the third article of the day, which is India's firmer attempts at mineral diplomacy. Now, what this article tells you about is how we are slowly and gradually trying to expand our manufacturing sector, our technological capability in the field of critical minerals. Not just minerals, critical minerals. So, critical minerals वो होते हैं which are important for, let's say, semiconductors, technology development, renewable energy. Basically, जो बहुत ज़्यादा critical है. Critical means important, right? So ऐसा कोई fixed definition नहीं है इसका. Depends on the need of the country. But yes, this is a strategic concern because we are overly reliant to China for the need of our critical minerals. And up we are trying to expand our diplomacy. Diplomacy as in we are trying to establish a dialogue. We are trying to establish partnerships with multiple countries, be it your Central Asian countries like Kazakhstan, जहाँ से हमने एक partnership sign करी है for titanium. और बी इट योर वो वाला लैटिन अमेरिकन वाली कंट्रीज जिसको आप बोलते हो लिथियम कॉरिडोर, जिसको आप बोलते हो अर्जेंटीना, चिली एंड बोलिविया, 3 कंट्रीज. वहां पे भी हमने पार्टनरशिप साइन करी है. एंड दीज पार्टनरशिप्स, हाउ आर वी साइनिंग देम? वी आर साइनिंग देम थ्रू एंटिटी ऑफ द इंडियन गवर्नमेंट व्हिच इज कॉल्ड द काबिल. द फुल फॉर्म इज खनिज विदेश इंडिया Limited. So this is essentially a company operated by the Indian government, but although a private company, which is entrusted with the task of finding partnerships in different countries, finding mines and minerals in different countries, and getting into partnerships in order to procure critical minerals for India. So, using this particular initiative, the Kabul initiative, which we started in 2019, we are trying to expand our partnerships to other countries, be it your Central Asian, be it Latin American, be it the country of Australia, which is also very mineral rich. So minerals, कौन से minerals essentially की बात कर रहे हैं, टाइटेनियम हो गया, कोबाल्ट हो गया, लिथियम. वी ऑल नो ईवीज में लिथियम आयन बैटरीज लगती हैं. लिथियम हमारी कंट्री में बहुत कम है, so we have to import it. And not just import it, we also have to process it. So both of the things are important. And the first attempt in establishing this particular mineral diplomacy is developing an international agreement with these particular countries, developing bilateral ties with these resource rich countries like Australia, Argentina हो गया, US हो गया, Russia हो गया, Kazakhstan हो गया, जहाँ पे there is abundance of supply of minerals like lithium and cobalt. And to further this particular vision, the next step is definitely to form an international engagement and make a partnership with those, and use your international partnerships like the Quad partnership, like the Mineral Security Partnership by US, like the G7 partnership, in order to further our agenda of diversifying our mineral supply chain. So that is what this article essentially talks about. Last May, this article also talks about MSP, which is not the minimum support price, the farmers value MSP. Is context mein MSP means Mineral Security Partnership. Minerals Security Partnership. So this is a US-led initiative जिसमें 14 countries are a part of this initiative, जहाँ पे वो एक दूसरे की मदद करेंगे, cooperation करेंगे in order to ensure mineral supply for each of these countries. And India also is a part along with 13 other countries. And इस initiative के through भी we are trying to enhance our capabilities. कब ज्वाइन करा था इंडिया ने एमएसपी? जून 2023 में ज्वाइन किया था, व्हेन पीएम मोदी विजिटेड यूएस, देन वी जॉइंड द एमएसपी. And abhi, there are 14 countries. So that is what this particular article talks to you about. Interesting article, should give it a read. And I believe now that you understand the crux of it, you would be able to grasp this article quite well. And that brings us to the end of today's Hindu analysis, but we'll quickly look at some vocabulary words as well. The first word is frazzle. Frazzle का मतलब होता है the state of being completely exhausted. Exhaustion, fatigue, lethargy. Antonyms यानी opposites होगा इसके: refreshment, energy, rejuvenation. Sentences: the meeting left me completely frazzled. The next word of the day is flitting. Flitting essentially means to make an irregular series of quick, sudden movements. Darting, fluttering, wandering are synonyms. Bargain hunters at the flea market flitted from table to table like hummingbirds in a garden. So basically, बहुत ऐसा जल्दी जल्दी move करना. That is called flitting. The third word is teed off. Teed off means feeling or showing anger. Ballistic, angry, infuriated are synonyms. Pleased, accepting, delighted are antonyms. He teed off on the labor government policies is the sentence. So teed off means getting angry. Flitting means quick, sudden movements. Frazzle means completely exhausted. And that brings us to the end of today's Hindu analysis session. I hope this was a productive one and you got to know something new today. Please subscribe to the channel if you are new to the channel and haven't subscribed. Please turn on the notifications because we'll be coming up with a lot of exciting sessions for you guys. And yeah, like this particular video if you found this helpful. Share this with your friends and I'll see you in the next one. That's all from my side today. I have some questions in the chat box. The carbon emission capacity for countries based on what parameters? This is different for different type of countries. For example, for developed countries, the parameters are a little stricter because they have already done a lot of carbon emission. For developing countries, they are a little bit more relaxed. So it depends on country to country and how that country requires carbon emissions to be done. That is something which is decided based on international treaties and based on bilateral relationships. So yeah, it's subjective. Who decides this capacity? The countries themselves, among themselves, decide this capacity. Do you think studying law in Australia is a good idea? Yeah, why not? Fantastic idea. If you have the opportunity, go for it. If I were in your place, I would have definitely done that. Okay, chalo. That's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for participating and attending. I'll see you all in the next session tomorrow, same time, same place. Signing off.